Hey fam, by the time you see this, it'll be Wednesday. Need to come on here and do my review for Black Monday, Season 1, Episode 9. And we are 2 days away from the actual Black Monday on the show now. So let's get it. So this episode starts off with a gathering celebrating Tiff and Blair. At this gathering that everyone's all dressed up for, they're playing this video. And the video is to the song, or the music, I should say, of way back in the day, Tiffany's I Think We're Alone Now. But Tiff is in the video acting everything out, and she's changed all the words to be about Blair and her. The video is horrible, okay? It's cringeworthy. And at the party, Mo and Don are watching the same video in utter terror because they agree with me. So Mo is like, you left Spence for Blair. And he's like, you like bitches more than Billie Jean King. That's a professional tennis player. The one who came out to be gay, if you didn't know. Anyway, if you like guys, basically, what did you ever see in me? And she replies, you're the biggest bitch of them all. You're afraid to love. Touche, Dawn. Touche. Okay, so then at that same party, we have the SEC agents who are there, and they're posing as servers. So they have the white button-up shirts on, black pants, and they offer Keith some wine while belittling him, basically, and reminding him that they're there. They're present. Do what you need to do, Keith. Okay, so then we're back to Blair and Tiff, where he tries to basically get her to sign a power of attorney. I'm not sure how that's supposed to work in his favor right now. I don't know. For good, forever, whatever. I don't know. He's trying to get her a power of attorney, and she declines. She tries to have him sign a prenuptial agreement. And at this particular point, when she's presented it to him, her parents are interrupting them with the toast. And the camera's back to Mo and Don. And basically tells her, I'm not afraid to love. He says that he was going to propose to her. And she's like, bullshit. And he says he got the ring and everything. And she asks, when? And he says, when we were horseback riding upstate. And she replies, we never did. And he says, exactly. Okay? Back to Blair and Tiff. Blair protests this prenup that she's proposing to him. And she's like, my dad won't let me marry you without one. What's the big deal? Unless our 11-year relationship was your plot to get to Georgina Jeans. At the wedding, so the next day, basically, they're having the wedding. That was the wedding, the pre-wedding dinner the family has, whatever. Now we're at the wedding day. And it's all, dressed up like a wedding, and it's the stock floor. Basically, after losing the original venue that the wedding was supposed to take place at, and that was the Plaza Hotel. Wow, I said Plasma. The Plaza Hotel, which is where all the rich and everyone who's anyone gets married in New York. During Tiff's and Blair's brief separation, they lost this venue. So this is the next plan they have. Blair and Dawn are on, the wedding floor where all the chairs and everything are set up. And they're dressed in the wedding garb because they're both part of the wedding. And from the ribbons to the big ass hair and the wrong colors on folks, it's an 80s nightmare. It's just really bad, y'all. But anyway, they show them there, but then they show another room where basically Blair and Dawn are in a room, I believe it's Mo's office, and they're flirting. They're both ready, dressed for the wedding, and just all out flirting. And Mo enters the room, and he's saying, don't forget to pull out Dawn, basically. Blair's like, he's just mad I got the girl. Blair's sort of gloating to Mo because he knows that he wants Dawn and he's got her. And Mo's like, don't be a dumb hick fuck flirting with your girlfriend when you're about to get married. Jeopardizing this $64 million year-long scheme. Okay, at this point, Keith and the guys enter the room, and Blair hands out their gifts. They're all groomsmen, and he got them gifts, and they all have these boxes, and they open them up, and they're like, these are Mo's custom-made watch. And he's like, yeah, they were. And Mo's like, where's my gift at? And he's like, you already have one. You already have one. Well, come to find out, this watch that Mo had custom made for himself that he shows all the time, brags about, Blair went and had him made for all his groomsmen. And he's basically like, yeah, I got them made for you guys, and they're called the Molexes. That's what he's calling them. Mo is pissed, okay? So they all basically get their glasses of the drinks, and they toast to the sham wedding that's about to take place. And Mo then mentions shares, and he's trying to talk about the Georgina play, basically. And every time he's talking about it, Keith is coughing. He's coughing up a storm. And he's coughing so bad that basically they kick him out of the room. And then Mo starts discussing what he will do with his shares once they get the money. And Dawn doesn't want to hear that. She's trying to stay on course, on track for what they need to do right now. And Blair shares at this point that Tiff wants him to sign a prenup. And Mo is pissed, and he goes off, and he's basically like, if you don't get out of that shit, you're a fucking pussy, because you're going to jeopardize everything that we've done here. All right? So, Keith, after they had kicked him out of the room, he goes into the break room there at the office, and he notices there's magnets on the refrigerator, and he's taking the magnets off, and he's rubbing them on looks a tape deck recording that they have on his inner thigh, strapped in, taped, so he can record Mo and anyone else on their team who's talking about the plan they're about to do, so that they can catch him. All right, but by running these, rubbing the magnet on the recording device, it ruins it, and Keith isn't stupid. Okay, so basically, Okay, so Blair meets up with Tiff fully dressed. Okay, he goes to her room where she's getting dressed. And inside the room, it's her and her girls, but she's already got her dress on and everything. And he says, I need to talk to you. And she's like, you're not supposed to see me before the wedding. So she makes him go into the room, eyes closed. And that's what he does. All right, so in there, he basically admits to her that Mo hired him to try to get control of Georgina Jeans, but he just found out about it. He did not know. Basically, he says, we should do it. And she smacks the holy shit out of Blair at this point. And she's like, you betray my family. And he's like, they betrayed you by having you kidnapped. And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? And he goes on to tell her everything that happened, or the kidnapping, basically. And he apologizes. And, you know, he's trying to be there for someone he cares about in this instance that is vulnerable. It's screwed up. She's completely heartbroken, but it's like she calms down and she starts really hearing what he says. And she realizes he's telling the truth. And she wants to cry, noticing basically that this wedding is kind of fucked. And at this point, Blair is like, the wedding has been fucked. And he's like, I have one more thing to tell you. And they pan away from them at this time. So we don't know what he's telling her, okay? So Mo and Dawn are waiting on the floor of the wedding at this point, okay? They're waiting for Tiff and Blair to show up. And she tells him, I don't believe that you're going to propose. And she's like, I never even rode a horse except for that tight end from the Colts or the wide receiver from the Broncos. And there's that quarterback from the Raiders. And he's like, a Raider is not a horse. And she's like, this one is. I got to give it up for Tiff real quick. Oh, I'm sorry, for Dawn real quick, because I appreciate this conversation. It's a good one. Okay, so he reminds her of a ring that basically she had seen, and she was definitely interested in buying, but he discouraged her from buying it, saying, you don't have enough money for this, blah, blah. And she remembers that night, but she still doesn't believe him. And he goes on to describe the ring in great detail. He's telling her how many carats, baguettes, the style of the stone, blah, blah, blah. I'm not familiar with all this stuff because I don't know stones like that. And he basically tells her that right after that, they broke up. The reason for the breakup is because she was pushing for ownership in the company, which she currently has now, 15%. And basically, he had to cancel the horse ride in the proposal because they broke up. They never got there. Okay, so we're back to Tiff and Blair, and Tiff is crying, saying that she should have known. Whatever Blair told her, she's saying, I should have known. And she probably did, basically. And mind you, she's sitting there in her white wedding dress, sipping red wine. There is not a living woman on the planet that would do that unless she thought the wedding was fucked. Okay, so Blair is like, if you want to call off the wedding, I understand at this point. And she's like, the only marriage I want to call off is my parents. Tiff is pissed they did this to her. She's like, Blair, you're the smartest person I've ever known. And my private school had Orientals. That's what she said, Orientals. Orientals is a rug. It's something. Asians are people. Bitch, bye. They done been racist during this whole... Okay. She says, I want in. And basically they skip the next scene that we see here, and it's Blair and Tiff saying their adieus at the wedding, because that's what happened next. Okay. Then they're being presented at the reception, basically, as Mr. and Mrs. Georgina. Yes, Blair took her last name. I don't know a man who would do that. They have their first dance at the wedding reception, which is to the Star Spangled Banner. What the fuck? Who dances to the Star... They start off with a little slow dance. Tiff is in her wedding dress, and then it proceeds to a faster pace of the Star Spangled Banner, where Blair rips her wedding dress off, and she has sort of a blue, red, and white ensemble that matches his. It's piss poor, and apparently they're claiming it because Tiff is a hardcore Republican. You could be a Republican with some class or taste or something, whatever. So the next thing, they show Keith is downing drinks, and the SEC agents are like, slow down and go get the recording that we need, basically a Mo. That's what they're telling him. So Mo approaches Blair asking, basically, at the reception, after the dance and all that, what's up with the prenup? And Blair's like, there is no prenup. And Mo is so happy over this deal he pulled off. He's like, I did this. And Blair's like, actually, we pulled it off. And he's like, you know what, you're absolutely right. He's like, matter of fact, I want to squash this beef between you and I. He's like, let's do a toast. Mo's trying to make peace. And Blair's like, fuck that. No. And he says, basically, if you want the 6% of Georgina jeans that you signed up for here, he's like, I want 6% of Jammer Group, your group. And Mo is like, you can suck my dick. And Blair is then like, I went to Burgers and Burgers. This was a burger joint that Mo took Blair to, what, second episode? I don't know, a long time ago. And he told him that he used to go there when he was younger. And he basically says there's a sign in the restaurant that says they've only been open for 2 years. He knows Mo was bullshitting him, basically. And then he did further research to find out that there is no record of an orphanage in that area. Mo lied and said that he grew up at an orphanage in the area, which is why he used to go to Burgers and eat in the area when he was younger. Lies, okay? And then he goes on and says, furthermore, there's no record of Maurice Monroe anywhere before 1974. Basically telling him, there's no record of you. He basically goes in saying, I wonder what the FCC would say if they knew that... oh, shoot, I lost my spot. Oh, I'm sorry. If they knew they issued a seat of exchange to a man who does not exist. He is threatening Mo's livelihood, his business, everything about him. And Mo is like, you really crossed over to the dark side, didn't you? And Blair is like, I learned it watching you, Dad. Checkmate. Mo wants to basically hug him for growing, but he wants to beat his ass as well. And Blair steps in straight up to Mo's face. At this point, Mo is like, well played. And he's like, I'll give you 1%. And Blair is like, this isn't a negotiation. He leaves him with that. 6% or nothing, walks away. And at this point, Mo's like freaking out, and he goes and finds Don, and he approaches her, telling her what happened with Blair. And he's like, you need to help me. I need you to give a couple percentages of your share up, because I'm not trying to be a minority owner of my company, which is the exact math that Blair did. 6% takes Mo down to 49%, because remember, the Yakuza have 30%, Don has 15%, all right? Dawn freaks out about all this, and she's pissed at Mo for even asking her, and she tells him, you're selfish, you don't even care about yourself, and fuck no, walks off. At this point, he sees Keith there at the reception, and he tries to talk to him, and the whole time he's trying to talk, Keith is coughing up a storm because he doesn't want the recording catching him, and Keith lies and says, I gotta go take a shit, and Mo follows him to the bathroom. So Keith is in the stall taking a dump, being loud as hell while Mo is trying to talk. And Keith's just trying to keep anything from being recorded. That's where he's at. All right, so the noise is getting pretty good. And while he's talking, he decides he's not getting any help here, basically. So he runs out of the bathroom and literally runs into Tiff. And Tiff's kind of drunk. She's 3 sheets to the wind. And standing there talking to him, she basically tells him, I know what you guys are doing with the whole Georgina play, and I'm in on it. Like, Blair already told me about it. And Mo is freaking out like, oh, you know? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, basically says, I also know that Blair's gay. See, apparently when they panned from that conversation, instead of Blair saying, I'm in love with Don, he told her, I'm gay, which is what she accepted. And Mo is really freaking the fuck out at this point, okay? So at this point, Keith goes, he leaves the bathroom. He's so done with this, he can't take it anymore. He goes and finds those 2 chicks from the SEC, and he throws the recording into this food that's liquid in front of them, basically, and they're freaking out because the recording is no longer any good. Mo says, fuck you. I'm sorry, Keith says, fuck you, I'm done, and he walks away. Okay, so Mo goes to share with Don, basically, what he's discovered, saying that Blair is trying to make a move against us at this point. And she's really not believing it. And he says that Tiff told him that her wedding is a sham and Blair is gay. And at this point, Keith has already got rid of the recording, so he comes and tries to step in now on the conversation. And Don says, Don is telling Keith, Mo is jealous because Blair is a gay mastermind trying to play us all. This is where she's given the credit at, basically. And Keith is like, everyone knows Blair is gay. And she's like, how do you know? How does everyone know? Why does everyone know this but me, and I'm supposed to be with this guy? And Keith is like, we just have better gaydar than you do, honey. And she still does not believe him. And then he pulls out the ring. Mo pulls out the ring that he still kept all this time that he was going to propose to her too. And he opens it up and shows her, and she is shook. She is shook, not only because now I believe you, but I kind of get to fall into that love I've had for you in my heart. That's what I see here. Let me see. He says, basically, when it comes to real shit, I'm as real as it gets. He says, now think about it. Why would he ask for 6% on the nose? 5% gets it done. He said, but he asked for 6%. He says, I lose control of Jammer Group. Why? And at this point, she realizes what that he's trying to make Georgina play for himself. She's like, fuck, she can't believe this. And then she's like, why is he dating me? What do I have to do with this? And Mo's like, maybe he thought he could get your shares or throw us off even. She is beyond pissed, and Mo is like, we have to work together, basically. We have to get beyond our past, and we have to work together, me and you. And they agree, and they shake as partners for the first time, might I ask. And Don's like, what do we do now? And Mo's like, give him exactly what he wants, okay? So then they show back to receptions all over, and it's Only people in the room are Blair and Tiff, and they're smoking a joint in the reception area. And she says, the emerald ring was actually lucky, right? And she's like, I want you to have the other one to remember me by. And he's like, how could I ever forget you? He's like, you're my first everything. You're my first wife. And he apologizes, you know. And she's like, it's okay. She's like, I do love you. And he says, I love you too. And at this point, they pick up their champagne glasses and they toast to the Georgina play. And they show Don and Mo back in Mo's office, who pick up their champagne glasses, and they're toasting to the Georgina play. Now, this is the episode before the last one. One more episode and we know everything. How it all plays out and who ends up jumping off the building on Black Monday. So I look forward to sharing it with you all. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, hit the like button, become a subscriber. If you have any comments, please leave them below. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.